Calipers, and welcome back to the Self-Made Auto Channel. Got us a Nissan Murano. Need some rear brakes. So, what a way to start a day. With a leftover job from yesterday. It was a crazy day at the shop. So we're going to pull the caliper, at least loosen up the pins. I don't know on these if you can take the pins all the way out or not. Obviously the upper one here we can, but I don't believe the bottom one on these Nissans comes out. However, we will loosen up the lower one here even though you can't see it. It's just like the upper one, it's just 4 inches below it. Problem is though, I think they hit the control arm because, well, just because that's the way Nissan built it. In either case, it is easier to loosen it up at this point. Let's see. Let's see how Nissan did here. No, you can't change the brakes on your Nissan, or at least take the brake rotor off without pulling your lower control arm, or we will use 19 mil and we'll pull the whole caliper bracket. I'd get you back there on a better camera angle, but it's basically impossible. So I'm going to pull both caliper bracket bolts. The lower one you cannot get a socket on, so you do have to go old-fashioned Amish style wrenching this baby all the way to the end. I made that sucker about as long-winded as they could. So that's the lower bolt. Let's see if we can spin the top one out here and get it going the right way. There. Like I say, if you're just doing pads on it, you know, perhaps you could just pull the top bolt out, you know, and then you'd have to push your piston in here a little bit, and then you could just pivot, you know, the caliper down, you know, pad slap it and, you know, ship it. However, you know, in our case, if we want to get the caliper off, you know, we have to take the whole bracket loose, and then you can pull your pin out so it doesn't hit the control arm, and then we can do what we need to do. Stick that up there before somebody flips out. Or, you know, if you need to get the rotor off, obviously you have to pull the caliper bracket. Depends on where you live, I guess. So this one is getting calipers. I think the other side is ground right down to metal. Now you can see that these pads have a little bit of material left on them. Surprisingly enough, they're not super seized in there. So we'll pull our, I guess we could pull our hardware off over right here. And I suppose if you live in an area of the country or world where you don't have rust, which must be you live in heaven, then you can pad slap them. But around here it'd be kind of difficult because we actually have to get the caliper bracket off regardless to clean all the garbage out, you know, behind the abutment clips to keep it from giving the pads the old squeeze. Ta-da! So if your caliper doesn't come off as easily as ours did, the little rubber plug that we pulled out of the brake rotor, you'd have to pop that out, reach through with a screwdriver, and back off your star wheel adjuster here. By flicking it up, it's going to shorten it, therefore backing off your parking brake shoes. Typically, unless somebody has adjusted them out, you know, too tight, or there's a big rust ridge on the inside of the rotor, they'll usually come off pretty easy without touching the adjuster. So that's something to just keep in mind. And then if you flick it down, it actually expands them and makes them tighter. Moving right along, we're going to file this one out. Regular square file, clamped in the vise. Just got to get the rust out. Usually doesn't take much. Sometimes I'll put the file on edge and just kind of give it a push roll, I call it. It's a classic move. And that usually breaks up the big chunks. And then I just go until I get down to bare metal. Now, if you just try to do this with a wire brush, typically it does not get the rust out. It just polishes it. But we need to get the rust out. And I know this is not the proper way to use a file. There. Once you get the big chunks out, then you can hit it with a wire brush. But I just had to take a break and put a battery in a Buick. 11 years old, factory battery. It is actually the little old lady's story. The car only has 14,000 miles on it, 11 years old. Of course, it has dents on all four corners, but low miles. Good enough for the girls I run with. Then we'll use old Roger. That's the name of the grinder, in case you didn't know. Be careful not to wad up the boots in the wheel or your digits. Good job, Roger. We've got new hardware. Now, the pads did come with 8 pieces of hardware. 2 skinny ones and 2 fat ones. By that, I mean the distance in between a clip. So apparently these pads fit a couple different models. Now, I know that everybody's gone out and bought the purple tub of brake grease, but we're changing it up at SMA. We're going orange. It's still extreme, silicone extreme. And no, I don't prefer it over the purple or like it any more or any less. It's just I ran out of purple. Thought I had some in stock. Went to grab some, and I didn't. So I called down to the napper, told him I needed some Permatex Extreme. And this is what they sent. So this is what we're using. We'll grease it. Oops. Whoa, fella! Round 2. We'll put our little metal clips on. That went smoother that time, fellas. Stick that one on. We do have our pads. Slip them in. Ooh, they fit nice and loose. That's better than too tight, at least in this case. And then we have our one with the squeaker. She's going on the inside. Now these are going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt because they do flop around so much. So perhaps we'll leave them out for the time being. Going to make sure that our caliper pins have sufficient lube. Not too much. Just touch them up a little, particularly up where they seal around the boot. Looks pretty good. What's that? So we'll make a mess. Wait, on the bottom of the desk here. I'm going to take and wire wheel up these bolts so they screw in a tad bit easier. I'm too lazy to walk upstairs to get some fluid film, so we're just going to use a little Crown T40 on our hub face here, which is actually quite clean. Now, if this is all rusty and crusty, you will want to clean it off. So be mindful of that. "100% poly coated from the napper." Can't tear anything. Caveman style. Now these do not come slathered in grease, which is nice. Now we've got to look around for 10 minutes and find our little rubber plug, wherever it may be. So, found it 1 hour later. So what I want to do is make sure that our parking brake is adjusted correctly. So I'm giving it the flick down from the top. It's got quite a bit of drag on it there. Probably just going to end up backing it off just about where it was. Okay. Much nicer. Just wanted to be sure. Now at this point, put in your rubber plug, because if you accidentally push it all the way through, you don't want to have to pull your caliper and everything back off to retrieve it. One of the wisest things Grandma ever taught me. So now we will get our caliper ready, which we should have done 10 minutes ago, but we didn't. We got interrupted by the lady who needed a battery. So we're going to push the piston back in. Use the appropriate device. Do not use a pair of channel locks. So we'll do that. That is in. The piston face on this is pretty clean. You can't see a thing. I think I'm not a professional cameraman. Lighting's turned off. Camera angle sucks. However, we can see that, as in most cases, the boot is puffy. Now you can either just jam a hole in it with your knife, which will ultimately ruin your caliper, or we can burp it like a little baby. We're going to pick up the rubber, and you can see inside here where the rubber attaches to the piston. So I'm just going to very gingerly work back in there, get underneath that rubber lip, lift it up just a little bit, work the boot around, and let the air out. Got a little bit of a fold in it there I want to get out. Sometimes you got to work the air up to the top twice to do it, but it can be a little bit of a pain, so we'll do it again. Like I say, just be careful not to jam a hole in the boot. There we go. Now, like I say, you got to make sure the piston face is clean, and then the ears on the back of the caliper, which in this case are actually pretty nice. You can, wire brush them off, flat file them if there's lots of rust, whatever you see fit in that case. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply some of the extreme lube to the inside ears. One thing I found interesting about this Canon is that it did have a warning on it. Where was it? I thought it was kind of comical. Let's see. I know I read this. Where did it say it? Maybe it was on something else. Oh, here we go. Big letters. Do not apply to the braking surface of the pad. Just in case you're wondering, do not paint your rotor with it. However, that will stop the squeaking. And then we're going to put just a little bit on the face of the piston. And if you don't want to get in here and do the face of the piston, just do the back side of the pad. Just, smear it up. You can overdo it if you get gobs of it on there, so I guess don't get gobs of it on there. And what we'll do is we will stick our bracket back on here, like so. Is that the bottom? Did I just not do the bottom? Or did I get lucky? No, I totally did the top like a complete moron. Don't follow this video for instruction, whatever you do. We're going to put the bottom pin in at this point. I guess we could do the top pin too, it really doesn't matter, just one thread. Get your pigtail out of it, don't get it all twisted up, and then we'll just stick it on and get our bolts in it wherever we put those. Get them started anyways. Now, if some of the grease transfers to your rotor, you're going to have to clean it off. Just FYI. get these snugged up so the caliper bracket's out. Then we'll just flip our caliper up, slide the pads in, and ship it. And once they're tight, pull the pin, flip down the caliper, install your outer brake shoe, install the inner brake shoe, squeaker towards the top, flip the caliper back. Now, of course, you can put the pads and stuff in all prior to, installing the whole mess, but knowing myself, it would have hit the floor like 7 or 8 times. Of course, torque your caliper to factory specs. Reinstall the wheel. Pump up the brakes. Flush your brake fluid, whatever you want to do there. Take it for a shake. Let's get in there and pump it up. Check your brake fluid after you pump up the brakes. The pedal feels good. I'm gonna get my seatbelt on so I ain't weeping the whole time. Alright, let's ride. Oh, just had to bring it back in for just a second. Road just looked nice. Brake pedal felt good. Had a little bit of a scraping noise in that right front wheel. The backing plate was just contacting the edge of the rotor. Of course, with the rear brakes in the condition they were, I didn't hear it on the initial test drive, so I just had to tweak that shield back just a little bit. So that's it, folks. Rear brakes on your Murano. And a quick zip around town. Pretty easy job. Kind of silly how they designed that control arm, so you just got to know which order to take them apart. Like I said, you kind of load up your caliper and put it on, but you take a chance, pads falling off and whatever. You can do it a bunch of different ways. That's how I do them. So got to keep on trucking. Lots filling up out there, and we got to get some stuff done. It's Friday. Got to get the heck out of here. In the meantime, go down there, click subscribe, ring the bell, do what you have to do, socials, all that stuff. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.